I was in my room, the lights dimmed, heart racing as I scrolled through profiles on a gay dating app I only downloaded out of curiosity or loneliness. My parents were away for the weekend, the house silent except for the soft hum of the ceiling fan. I thought I was safe, anonymous, hidden in the digital shadows, until I heard the front door creak open. I froze. I wasn't expecting anyone. A few heavy footsteps echoed through the hallway. I panicked, quickly locking my phone and stuffing it under my pillow. But it was too late. Standing at my bedroom door was my dad's best friend, Dominic. He was taller than I remembered, filling the doorway with his broad frame, his sharp eyes landing right on me. Then, on the glow of my screen that hadn't fully dimmed yet, "You might want to be more careful with what you leave open," he said, stepping into the room with a knowing look. My stomach dropped. He knew. And the way he smiled told me everything. He wasn't just going to walk away. "My name is Eric. I'm 19 years old, a sophomore in college, and I still live at home, mostly to save money. I guess you could say I'm a quiet type. I keep to myself, I study hard, and I've always been the kind of guy who blends into the background. Not invisible exactly, but safe, under the radar. At least I used to be. My dad's a former firefighter, one of those classic no-nonsense, man's man types. He's got strong opinions, especially about what it means to be a real man. Which means being gay? Yeah, not exactly something I've ever had the courage to bring up. I've always known I was different, but I buried it deep. Somewhere even I couldn't find it unless I was alone. The idea of being out in this house? Terrifying. We live in a nice enough suburb, the kind with identical mailboxes and dads who wash their trucks every Sunday morning. Our house is simple. 2 stories, beige siding, a creaky porch swing out front. It's quiet, predictable, safe, again. Until Adam started coming around more. Adam is my dad's best friend. They've known each other since high school. Bonded. Over fire academy and years of running into burning buildings together. Adam's a few years younger than my dad, maybe late 30s, early 40s. He's ridiculously built, like he walked out of a fitness magazine, and always carries himself with this quiet authority that made people listen when he spoke. Growing up, he was like an uncle to me. He'd ruffle my hair, bring me sneakers on my birthday, or let me ride on his Harley when Mom wasn't looking. But lately, he's been around more than usual. Ever since his divorce, he's been kind of floating. Sometimes he crashes on our couch after long shifts or drinks with Dad. Sometimes, he even comes by when my dad's not home, saying he forgot something or just needed to check on me. Didn't think much of it, until that night. There's also my mom, who's sweet but distant lately. She's been busy helping care for my sick grandmother out of town, so she's gone most weekends. It's just been me and Dad, and now, more often, Adam. And then there's my best friend Casey, my only real confidant. He's the only person who knows I'm gay, and even then, I barely admitted it out loud. We text more than talk. I think he suspects I'm afraid of more than just my dad. Because the truth is, I am. Afraid of being exposed. Afraid of losing the fragile peace I have. Afraid that the version of me my family loves is a lie. And now, all of that is in danger. Because Adam saw something he wasn't supposed to see, and I have no idea what he's going to do with it. It happened on a Saturday night. Quiet, uneventful, like most weekends when my parents were away. I was lying on my bed, phone in hand, the blue light of the screen the only illumination in the room. I'd been scrolling the app for maybe 20 minutes, just looking. Not messaging, not liking, just looking, curious, lonely. That's when I heard the front door creak open. I sat up immediately. My heart jumped to my throat. I wasn't expecting anyone. I scrambled to check the time, 9:43 p.m. My parents weren't due back until late Sunday. No one was supposed to be here. I quickly locked my phone and shoved it under my pillow, standing up and walking toward the door. And that's when I heard his voice. "Eric?" It was Adam. I opened the door just a crack, trying to play it cool. "Hey, what are you doing here?" He stepped into the hallway, his boots heavy against the floorboards. He wasn't wearing his usual jeans and t-shirt. This time, it was Gym shorts and a tight black tank top that clung to his arms and chest like it had been sewn on. He looked like he had just come from a workout. "Your dad left his truck keys in my car. Figured I'd drop them off," he said casually, holding them up and tossing them into the air. "Didn't think you'd be up." "Yeah, just, doing some homework." His eyes flicked behind me. "Homework, huh?" I turned instinctively, and that's when I saw it. My phone, lit up, open, still displaying the app screen, the profile grid, the unmistakable rainbow logo in the corner. My stomach twisted. I tried to casually block his view, but it was useless. Adam's eyes narrowed just slightly, that faint smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. He stepped inside without asking. "You know," he said, his tone shifting to something lower, smoother. "You should be more careful with what you leave open." I didn't know what to say. I felt exposed, like I was standing, naked in front of him. My skin prickled with shame, fear, humiliation. He picked up my phone without permission, glanced down at the screen, and then looked me dead in the eyes. "So, is this what you're into now?" I swallowed hard. "Please don't tell my dad." He smiled, almost like he was enjoying watching me squirm. "Relax. I'm not going to tell him." Relief washed over me for a second. Then he added, "Not if you're smart." I blinked. "What does that mean?" He leaned in a little closer, so close I could feel the heat of his breath. "Means you and I are going to come to an understanding." That was the moment everything changed. My secret wasn't just out. It was being used against me. And the worst part? Part of me wasn't just afraid. Part of me was curious. After that night, something in the air between Adam and me changed. It wasn't spoken out loud, there were no threats, no demands carved in stone, but his eyes said everything. I didn't need him to spell it out. The way he looked at me, the lingering glances, the smug quiet when we were alone. It was clear. He had something on me, and he was going to use it. At first, I tried to pretend like nothing had happened. I buried myself in schoolwork. I avoided Adam. I told Casey everything, half crying through voice notes I couldn't bring myself to replay. Casey offered to confront Adam himself, to even tell my dad if it came to that. But the idea of my father finding out, of his face changing when he looked at me, was more terrifying than anything Adam could ever do. So, I stayed quiet. That following week, Adam came by 3 times. Each time he found an excuse to linger. Fixing something in the garage, dropping off tools, watching a game with my dad, and each time he made sure we ended up alone for at least a few minutes. "You got any plans tonight?" he'd ask, his tone light, but his eyes locked onto mine. Or, "Your secret's safe with me, as long as we understand each other." He never touched me, never crossed that final line. But his words, his presence, they hung over me like a shadow I couldn't outrun. I started avoiding the house altogether. Spent more time at the campus, library. I signed up for late-night tutoring even though I didn't need it. I was just trying to buy time. Time away from him. Time to think. But the pressure didn't ease. One Friday evening, Adam cornered me in the kitchen. My dad was in the backyard, grilling steaks. I was washing dishes, pretending not to notice. Adam standing in the doorway. "You know," he said casually, "I've been thinking." I didn't turn around. "I think you owe me something." I gripped the edge of the sink. "I don't owe you anything." He took a step closer. "You owe me silence, and that silence comes at a price." I turned then, my voice trembling. "Why are you doing this?" He looked at me, and for a brief second, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Something almost sad. But then it vanished. "Because I can." That night, I cried. Not silent tears, but the kind that leaves your throat raw and your chest hollow. I didn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how someone I once trusted could become the source of so much fear. But something shifted in me that night. I was tired of being afraid. The next morning I called Casey. "Can we meet?" I asked. "I need to talk, in person." We met at a park we used to hang out in during high school. He showed up in a hoodie and joggers, hair messy, coffee in hand. "What's going on?" he asked, sitting on the bench beside me. I told him everything. Again. But this time, I didn't hold anything back. I told him about the threats, the looks, the fear that clung to me like a second skin. Casey was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "You know, what he's doing, it's not just creepy. It's abusive. He's using power and fear to trap you. That's not okay, Eric." "I know. But if my dad finds out, if your dad really loves you, he'll come around." I looked at Casey, my best friend, and for the first time I saw someone who wasn't just listening. He was ready to fight for me. And suddenly, I wasn't completely alone anymore. But I still wasn't ready to go nuclear. Instead, I decided to change the game. The next time Adam came over, I acted normal. I smiled. I even asked him if he wanted something to drink. He looked surprised but pleased, like a cat that thought the mouse had stopped running. "Maybe you're learning," he said smugly. But what he didn't know was, I was watching him too, studying his patterns, timing how long he stayed, watching when he was alone with my dad. I needed leverage. Something. Anything. Days passed, then a week. No escalation, but the tension stayed, and every time I saw him, my stomach turned. One night, Adam came by late. My dad was working an overnight shift. It was just me in the house. When I opened the door, he didn't say a word. He just looked at me. I blocked the doorway. "You need to go," he smirked. "You sure you want to do that?" And for the first time, I didn't flinch. "Yeah," I said, "because I'm not afraid of you anymore." He stepped closer. "You think your dad will be proud of his gay son? You think he'll just pat you on the back and tell you it's okay?" "Maybe not," I said, heart pounding. "But I'd rather be hated for the truth than loved for a lie." He stared at me, expression unreadable. "Brave talk." I held my ground. "You need to leave. Now." To my surprise, he did. That night, I didn't sleep, but it wasn't fear keeping me up. It was adrenaline. I had taken my first step toward owning the truth, even if it shook the ground beneath me. Later that week, Casey helped me install a lock on my bedroom door. We talked about going to the police, but without anything physical, it was just my word against Adam's. So instead, we kept documenting. Messages, patterns, anything that could one day matter. I also started journaling, writing letters to myself, to my future, to the version of me I hoped to become. A version that wasn't defined by silence or shame. Then one morning, while I was heading to my car, I found an envelope on the windshield. No name, no return address. Inside, a note. "Careful, I still know your secret." I stared at it, fingers trembling, but this time, I didn't tear it up. I didn't cry. I took a photo of it and saved it in a file I created called Truth. That afternoon, I sat down with my mom over tea. "Mom, can I ask you something?" She smiled softly. "Of course, baby. If I ever told you something big, would you still love me?" She blinked, then reached across the table and took my hand. "There is nothing in this world that would ever make me stop loving you, Eric." And I believed her, but I wasn't ready to tell her yet. Not because I didn't trust her, but because for the first time in my life, I wanted to come out on my own terms. I wanted to reclaim the story that someone else tried to write for me. Wasn't there yet, but I was closer than I'd ever been, and the fear that once caged me, it was starting to crack. It all came to a head on a rainy Thursday evening. Thunder rolled low in the sky as I pulled into the driveway, wipers squeaking across the windshield. My heart was already racing, though I wasn't sure why. Maybe it was instinct. Or maybe it was the unfamiliar black truck already parked outside the house. Adam's truck. I hadn't seen him in almost 2 weeks. He'd gone quiet, maybe realizing I wasn't going to play his game anymore. I'd started to think it was over, that he'd finally backed off. I was wrong. I walked inside, the smell of wet pavement clinging to my clothes, and stopped dead in my tracks. Adam was sitting at the kitchen table with my dad, and they were laughing. My stomach dropped. "Hey, Eric," my dad said, waving a fork. "Adam brought over some takeout. Want to join us?" I forced a smile, eyes darting to Adam, who met my gaze with that same quiet smirk. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. The message was in his eyes. I'm still here. Still in control. Shook my head. "I've got homework." I turned toward the stairs, hoping to escape. But then I heard it. "Actually," Adam said casually, "I wanted to talk to Eric about something. Just the two of us." I froze. My dad raised an eyebrow. "Everything okay?" Adam stood, wiping his hands with a napkin. "Yeah, just some advice about school. You mind?" Dad shrugged. "Sure. Don't keep him too long. He's got finals coming up." We walked into the living room. As soon as we were alone, Adam's friendly mask dropped. "You really thought you were done with me?" he said, voice low. "That I'd just go away? I hoped," I replied, my voice steady, though my legs felt like jelly. "I hoped you'd find some decency." He chuckled darkly. "You and I both know what you are, Eric. You're scared. You always will. Bay. That's why you won't tell anyone what I know." I swallowed hard. "I'm not scared of being gay anymore, Adam." "Oh?" he said, stepping closer. "But you're still scared of your dad, of what he'll say, what he'll think of you." And that's when something inside me snapped. Not in anger, but in clarity. "No," I said quietly. "I'm scared he'll find out what you've been doing." He tilted his head. "He won't believe you." "I don't need him to," I replied, pulling out my phone. "Because I recorded everything you said, every threat, every message. I have screenshots, audio, a folder, and I sent it to someone I trust." Adam's face dropped, the smugness evaporating for the first time. He took a step back. "I'm done being afraid of you," I said, heart pounding so hard it was hard to breathe. "You don't get to own my story anymore." Silence stretched between us, thick and heavy, and then he turned and walked out the door, didn't say another word, didn't even slam it, just left. I stood there, trembling, shaking, trying to comprehend what had just happened. I had stood up, to him. I had taken back control, and even though my legs wanted to give out, even though my heart was still hammering against my ribs, I knew this was the moment I had waited for, not to be unafraid, but to be brave anyway. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the fading darkness outside my window, unsure if what had happened last night had been real. But my phone was still on the nightstand. The folder of evidence still sat in my files, untouched. Adam hadn't texted. He hadn't called. He was gone. And for the first time in months, I could breathe. Later that morning, I went down to breakfast. My dad was at the stove making eggs, humming along to some old rock song playing on the radio. He looked up and smiled like nothing had changed, but everything had. "You sleep okay?" he asked. I nodded slowly. "Yeah. Actually, I did." He chuckled. "Miracles happen." I sat down at the table, fingers wrapping around a warm mug of coffee. And for a moment, I just watched him. This man who had raised me, laughed with me, driven me to practice, cheered at every milestone of my life. He had no idea the storm that had been brewing inside me. I didn't want to hide from him anymore. "Dad," I said, voice tight in my throat. "Can we talk?" He turned around. "Of course. Everything all right?" "No, not really, but I think it will be." And then somehow the words poured out of me. Not about Adam, not yet, but the truth I'd been sitting on for years. I'm gay. The silence that followed felt like time itself had paused. I kept going. "I didn't want to tell you because I was scared. Not of you exactly, but of how everything might change. I thought you might look at me differently. Maybe even hate me. But I can't keep hiding it. Not anymore." My heart pounded in my chest like a war drum. I couldn't look at him. I just stared at the mug in front of me, bracing for whatever would come next. Then I heard him set the spatula down, and the chair across from me slid out. I looked up. My dad's eyes were glassy, his face softer than I'd ever seen it. "Eric," he said quietly. "Son, I don't care who you love. I care about you, and nothing in this world will ever change that." I blinked back tears. "You're not mad?" "Mad? No." He chuckled, shaking his head. "I'm sad you felt like you couldn't tell me sooner. But I'm proud of you. You hear me? Proud." That's when I lost it. I cried. Ugly, messy, soul-emptying tears. And he got up and walked around the table and pulled me into the kind of hug that makes everything feel a little lighter. It didn't fix everything, but it was the beginning of healing. A few days later, I met up with Casey at the local coffee shop. I filled him in on everything. What I'd told my dad, how Adam had disappeared, how free I finally felt. "I knew you had it in you," Casey said with a grin, nudging me with his elbow. "I didn't," I admitted. "But I couldn't keep letting someone else control my life." Casey took a sip of his latte. "You know, I think you should share this story someday. Maybe not all the details, but the part about finding your voice, about choosing truth over fear. Someone out there might need it." I thought about that for a long moment. "Yeah," I said finally. "Maybe I will." And so I started writing. It began as journal entries, bits of my story, fragmented and raw. Then, with Casey's help, I shaped it into something more. An article. I submitted it anonymously to a campus publication. I titled it, "When Silence Isn't Safe." The piece exploded. People reached out. Strangers, classmates, even faculty members. Some shared their own stories of being manipulated, shamed, or forced into silence. Others simply wrote to say, "Thank you." And just like that, I realized something powerful. My voice mattered. Not because I had all the answers. Not because I was perfect. But because I had survived. And I had chosen to speak. Eventually, I told my mom too. Her reaction was even more emotional than my dad's. She cried for a full 10 minutes before pulling me into the tightest hug. "We always knew, baby," she whispered. "We were just waiting for you to be ready." And somehow, knowing they knew, even before I did, made me feel safer than I'd ever felt in my life. Weeks turned into months. Adam never came back. My dad never asked about him again. I'm not sure if he suspected something, or just quietly erased him from our lives. Either way, I didn't need closure from Adam. I had already taken back everything he tried to take from me. My peace, my pride, my future. Now, I volunteer part-time at an LGBTQ+ student support center. I mentor younger kids, especially those who feel like they're walking the tightrope between truth and fear. I tell them what I wish someone had told me. You don't owe anyone your silence, and your truth is never something to be ashamed of. Looking back, it's strange to think how close I came to letting fear shape my entire life, to letting someone else steal my story. But in the end, the most powerful thing I ever did wasn't fighting back or exposing anyone. It was simply standing up and saying, "This is who I am, and I'm not hiding anymore." 2 years later, I walk across the stage at my college graduation. The auditorium roars with applause, but the sound that means the most to me comes from the front row. My parents, cheering louder than anyone else. I spot my dad wiping his eyes. A few seats down, Casey gives me a proud thumbs up. "We're still close. He's dating someone now, and I've started seeing someone too, someone kind, patient, who knows what it's like to rebuild yourself piece by piece. It's not perfect, but it's honest, and that's more than I ever thought I'd have." After the ceremony, a younger student I'd mentored finds me outside. "Hey," he says quietly, "I read your story last year. It gave me the courage to come out." That moment hits me harder than any diploma, because that's the thing about surviving. When you share your story, you give others permission to survive too. To hope. To believe that life on the other side of fear is not just possible, but beautiful. I don't think about Adam much anymore. Not because I've forgotten, but because he no longer holds any power over my life. He's just a chapter. And I've written many more since. I've learned that healing isn't about erasing pain. It's about finding strength in vulnerability and choosing love over fear, again and again. To anyone out there hiding, hurting, or afraid, you're not alone. And you are not the sum of what's been done to you. You are the story you choose to write next, and it's never too late to begin.